But this thing gets even stranger, so let's keep reading. It says, with them was something that looked like fiery coals, burning the way torches do, with the fire flashing here and there between the living creatures. So you've got these four creatures, and they're connected. Okay, so that's the first thing you got to realize, is that it's not like these creatures are individually moving about, but actually all four creatures are interconnected by their wings, making sort of a square. And in the middle of the square, there's this thing that looks like almost like a torch, but it's not actually a torch. It's some kind of light or flame that is in the center of this square being made by these four creatures. All right, so let's keep reading. Okay, so then it says that the fire that was between them, it had a brilliance, and out of the fire went lightning. And so now you have, imagine these four sort of pillars with all these different faces, with these wings that are connected to one another, making this sort of open square. In the middle of the square, you've got this thing that looks essentially like a torch, and out of the torch is coming lightning. I mean, this is wild stuff. But it gets even crazier. It says, as I gazed at the living creature, I saw wheels on the ground. Wheels. Now, who knows what that actually means? Because in that time, his understanding of what a wheel is would have probably been a wooden, like just a wooden wheel that would have gone on a carriage, because they didn't have wheels like we have today. So, but whatever he saw, it had the appearance of a wheel. And so there are these wheels on the ground next to each of the four-faced living creatures. So you have this sort of pillar with arms and wings and four faces rotating it. And then you've got these legs that are kind of these like calves' hooves, these like glittering calf legs essentially, and feet that look like calves' hooves. All right. And then at the base, appearing to be attached, which I'm guessing that they were probably standing on some sort of platform that wasn't visible. So they're standing in the middle of this thing of wheels, okay? And so you've got these wheels now that are at the base of whatever this creature is. And he says all four wheels looked the same. Their inner parts gleamed like beryl, and the structure seemed to be that of a wheel inside of a wheel. All right, so just imagine you've got, just think of like a wagon wheel, and then inside of it, you have an additional smaller wheel that's sort of inside, and it's gleaming like beryl. All right, beryl, if I remember correctly, I think beryl is kind of like a blue-green, but it's shining. All right, so this thing is like lit up and shining with color. So it's like a bright, like I said, I believe beryl is like a blue-green color, if I remember correctly. And so you've got this like blue-green gleaming that, I mean, if you said the appearance of beryl, that probably means that it had like a glossiness, almost like a glass look to it. Okay, and then he says, when they moved, they could go in any of the four directions without turning as they moved. Their rims were tall and fearsome, because the rims of all four were full of eyes all around. All right, full of eyes. So now you've got these wheels that have beryl kind of glassy appearance to them, a wheel within a wheel, and they're full of eyes, like eyeballs. Now, again, you have to remember that he is trying to capture something that he sees where he has no direct correlation to be able to describe it. So he's just using the words that he has here to best describe it. So it very well could be that he's saying that he actually saw these wheels and they looked like they had eyeballs all within them, or it could be that he's trying to describe the wheels as having some type of implement that gives it the ability to see, or that it has sight in some way. I tend to think, though, that it was literal eyeballs, because the word he uses here, he says that it was fearsome. You know, when I think about wheels, it's like I can't really imagine a fearsome wheel. You know what I mean? But if I saw a wheel that was covered in eyeballs, that would be somewhat fearsome. And I think that's what we're experiencing here. He's saying that they were tall and they were fearsome because the rims were full of eyes all around. And so it says, when the living creatures moved, the wheels moved along with them. And when the creatures were lifted off the ground, the wheels went with them. And wherever the Spirit was to go, they went in the direction the Spirit wanted to go. The wheels were lifted up next to them because the spirit of the living creatures was in the wheels. And when the living creatures moved, the wheels moved with the former. When the former stood still, the latter stood still. And when the former were lifted off the ground, the wheels were lifted up next to them, because the spirit of the living creatures was in the wheels. I don't even know what to say about that. That part's crazy. So the spirit of whatever these things are is somehow in the wheels. Okay, but we get crazier. It says, over the heads of the living creatures was what appeared to be a dome, glittering like ice. And so imagine you've got this sort of like bluish dome that's going over this the sort of four creatures, all right? And so you got to remember, you have the four creatures that are creating a sort of square with their wings. In the midst of the square is this gleaming, flashing light that has the appearance of a torch that's firing lightning out of it. And then over the top of it, there's this sort of like bluish dome that has the appearance of ice. It gleams like ice. What that sounds like to me is almost like there's some sort of energy source in the center of it, and it's producing this sort of it's like a halo, almost like not necessarily a halo of fire, but like a halo of light that you tend to get whenever you've got an extremely dense power source, like fusion almost. And so you've got this dome that's like over the square space in the middle of whatever this thing is, all right? And so then he goes on. He says, under the dome, each had a pair of wings spread out straight towards those of the others, and each had a pair which covered their bodies. So that's what we talked about earlier. So these things are covering their bodies with their wings, and then they've got a second pair of wings that are connecting to one another to create the square. And then over the open square, you've got the dome on the top of it. And he says, I heard the sound of their wings when they moved. It was like the sound of rushing water, like the voice of Shaddai, like the noise of a tumultuous crowd or an army. And when they stopped, they lowered their wings. Whenever there was a sound from above the dome over their heads, they stopped and they lowered their wings. Okay, so I want you to imagine this now. You see these creatures, right? And really, the way it's described, it's almost more like one creature. Because it's not really, because they're in this whirlwind thing, and there's four of them, but they're all four connected by the way that they're kind of connecting their wings, and there's this open space in the middle, and so they're not moving individually, but they're moving collectively. So you have to kind of visualize this like square of these four things, almost like they're protecting something in the middle of them. And they've got this sort of dome over the top of them that almost, it sounds like the appearance of what we might view as like fusion, like when nuclear fusion happens, it kind of creates this halo of light. And so you've got almost this halo of light over the top. And as they move about, so everywhere they go, they make the sound of like a crowd talking, but with almost like water, so you've got this like rushing, almost like if you could imagine a waterfall with a crowd merged together in one sound. That's what this thing sounds like when it moves. And don't forget the wheels on all four sides. So you got one wheel on each side forming the square are moving in whatever direction this thing is going, and it never turns. It only goes forward, backward, side to side. It never turns. Anywhere it goes, it operates like it's on a grid. Okay, so let's keep going. Above the dome that was over their heads was something like a throne that looked like a sapphire. On it, above it, was what appeared to be a person. I saw what looked like gleaming amber-colored fire radiating from what appeared to be his waist upward. Downward from what appeared to be his waist, I saw what looked like fire giving a brilliant light all around him. This brilliance around him looked like a rainbow in a cloud on a rainy day. This was how the appearance of the glory of Adonai looked. When I saw it, I fell on my face, and I heard the voice of someone speaking. Oh, and I missed a really important part. The living creatures kept speeding here and there like flashes of lightning, okay? So now I want you to kind of see all of this together. You've got these four creatures that have the appearance of a human because they've got arms, but they've got arms on all four sides. They've got wings on all four sides. They've got these legs that are sparkling and have the feet have the appearance of hoofs, essentially. They're standing, either standing on a platform or they just have wheels that are somehow directly attached on all four sides. The wheels are covered with what sounds like eyeballs from the way that he describes it, and they're moving at the speed of lightning. So you just have to calm, almost like imagine whatever this thing is, like moving in like almost like phasal, like in phase. Like if you imagine like a blur, and then it's over here, and then a blur, and now it's over here, and then a blur, and now it's over here. But it moves in a grid. The thing never turns, it never rotates, it only moves forward, backward, side to side. And it says the spirit of this thing is in the wheels. And then sitting above it is this throne with someone sitting on the throne. Now, what that sounds like, if I'm to visualize it, is it sounds like a vehicle almost, where the throne is sitting on top of whatever this thing is, and it's moving about with the throne. Now, it could be that what he was looking at was the throne sitting kind of not necessarily connected to it and moving with the creature, but rather he was looking up and seeing the throne, and then the creature is moving about like beneath the throne, as though the throne is like overseeing where the creatures are moving, versus the throne like actually being attached and moving with the creatures. It's not super clear to me which one it is. I'm sure with further reading we could probably figure that out, but for the purposes of what I'm talking about right now, that's unnecessary. Now, I know that was kind of long, but I wanted to take the time to go through this because I want you guys to start getting a visual of the realm that we're connected to. This thing, whatever this creature is that Ezekiel saw, is part of the kingdom of heaven. Now, do I believe that there's an actual creature that's floating around with wheels full of eyes and four faces and everything else, or do I believe that this was symbolic? It was probably symbolic, but even if it is symbolic, Ezekiel still saw this thing. So the Lord chose to communicate to him about something that is heavenly, about a concept that is heavenly in a physical way. He showed him something that had that physical appearance, even if we're not to take this literally, if we're not going to take it and say there's actually a creature floating around with a throne above it and whatever, this dome of ice and all of those things. Even if we want to say that that is not a real creature that exists in the spiritual realm, we cannot ignore the fact that that is the way in which God chose to reveal whatever this spiritual concept is to Ezekiel that he was trying to reveal.